The story begins by introducing us to a romantic encounter between a young man who called himself Superhero and a beautiful girl. He claimed to be able to determine a girl's hip measurements just by looking at, but in reality, he was deceiving her. At that moment, his daughter called him out for being a liar. He was just a bathroom designer. 16-year-old Min-chan couldn't tolerate her father's attitude. She preferred kind and calm men. Her father acted like a stud, and his wife had left him for fooling around with other women and drinking excessively. He didn't take anything seriously. He only wanted his daughter's love. His behavior drove girls crazy. Later, they arrived home, and Min knew where to find him because he always took girls to the same restaurant. She went to interrupt his date. Min was exhausted and wanted to take a bath. Meanwhile, her father was about to close the door when he saw their neighbor, Yamada-san, who was quite mysterious. He was concerned about the old man's clothing, as he had very few clothes. But it wasn't his business. He closed the door in Yamada's face and rushed to the bathroom. He entered the bathroom before his daughter, unable to control his urge to defecate. His daughter got angry, thinking the bathroom would be left smelling bad. Meanwhile, the old man was being sucked into the toilet and transported to an entirely unknown place. He had no idea what was happening. A mysterious figure told him he was the only man on Earth using the toilet at that moment, so he had the fortune to join them. His mission was to protect the Earth. The old man just wanted to finish what he was doing. The mysterious figure informed him that he belonged to an anonymous society called the Committee of the Allied Republic of Heroes for Space Peace. The old man ignored him, still trying to process being sucked into the pipes. But it wasn't a dream. His body had transformed into hero mode, granting him superpowers. Space enemies would attack the next day, and he had to stop them, using his powers to protect the Earth. At that moment, he returned from the toilet, and his daughter was rushing him. The old man returned with a completely different appearance. His voice and body had changed. When he looked in the mirror, he panicked, not knowing how to explain what had happened to Min. As he left the bathroom, he realized his daughter had fallen asleep. He took the opportunity to think of an explanation. In a scene change, the extraterrestrials were heading for Earth. The advanced group and Emperor Black Hoi Hoi were ready. It was their mission to eliminate humans, and humanity would soon be consumed by despair. The old man pondered how to convince his daughter about his new appearance, which was nothing like his old body. He had gained a lot of weight. At that moment, he picked up the plush toy he had given his daughter on her birthday. Unfortunately, Min woke up, and the first thing she saw was a complete stranger. She punched him in the face. Her father tried to explain what was happening and confessed that he was still him, but it seemed he didn't have full control over his body. His overweight alter ego was saying perverted things, making the situation worse. Min kicked him out of the room, but he didn't feel any pain. He wondered if he had really become a hero. He spent the night on the street and woke up to hear a lovely girl asking for help. They were being stalked by Black Hoi Hoi. The great emperor was just an insect, and the overweight hero crushed it with his sandal while trying to flirt with the ladies, or at least attempting to. The old man's mind was saying one thing, but his body was doing another. The girls left, and the emperor was still alive, inviting the old man to join his forces. At that moment, a larger extraterrestrial named Iron Shrimp Man arrived, the second strongest villain, trying to defeat the old man. However, he was defeated with a single blow. The hero had saved the Earth early on and was determined to fulfill his role. Suddenly, his daughter arrived and hit him, as she had been shouting in front of their house for a while, telling him to leave. Meanwhile, news of the defeat reached the leader, who was angry. Bloodman's Machine, also known as Geouroboros, reassured him he would take care of the situation. The old man needed a place to stay, so he decided to go to his neighbor's house. The protagonist was grateful to Yamada for taking him in. Yamada was a complete lunatic and prepared giant eggs for breakfast, but they weren't regular eggs. There was a live bird inside them, which killed his appetite. Min noticed that the neighbor was making a lot of noise and wondered where her father was. She called him, and the old man was happy to see her call, but he ruined it again. His daughter thought a pervert had stolen her phone. Geouroboros passed by him. It seemed he was after his father. The old man found himself in the toilet again, processing everything that was happening. Yamada wouldn't stop talking, and the protagonist left the bathroom, completely ignoring it. The villain had located him and extended his claw to extract his heart, but he entered the wrong apartment. A lovely girl opened the door, and Geouroboros became embarrassed, putting his hand on his head, forgetting that he had the claw, and accidentally killed himself. Meanwhile, the protagonist was heading home on the lower floor. Min had forgotten that she didn't have classes and was preoccupied with not talking to her father, hoping he wasn't up to no good. The leader of the extraterrestrials couldn't believe that they had defeated an immortal being. One of his subordinates volunteered for the mission. None of the ones he had sent were intelligent, so he would use his deadly magic to eliminate the hero. He was known as the Master Chicken and had killed all the inhabitants of a planet with his magic. He couldn't afford to fail in his mission. The protagonist returned home, took advantage of his daughter's absence, and went to the toilet. He wanted to return to normal, but he didn't know how to do it. In a scene change, a young man could be seen flirting with men. Meanwhile, the old man took the opportunity to defecate, hoping to return to the pipes. The master chicken entered Yamada's house and intended to curse the apartment, but he was surprised to find giant eggs on the table, with a chicken inside that looked just like him. He was scared to see that they were meant for consumption. Yamada tried to eat him, but the chicken escaped. While at the door, he encountered the protagonist, who couldn't defecate because he hadn't eaten breakfast. He looked at the master chicken hungrily, and the villain used his magic to stop him. The old man realized the chicken was an extraterrestrial, and he didn't care if they invaded Earth. He just wanted to return to normal. At that moment, he saw his daughter with the boy from the apartment above. The old man remembered his little daughter and became angry seeing her with a boy. The chicken kept making noise, and the protagonist defeated him with his powers. The extraterrestrials proposed to the prince to forget about Earth, but he believed he had found his weakness. The old man worried about his daughter's puberty. The extraterrestrials were studying the male and female human bodies and had developed a taste for Earth women. They realized that the protagonist cared for men, so they decided to attack, steal his heart, make him suffer, and break his will to fight. They planned to make their daughter fall in love with Quinto, steal her heart, and take over the planet. Min headed to the police after her father's disappearance. The boys surrounded her, and her father secretly watched her. He was happy to see her worried but also furious about Min's company. At that moment, Yamada appeared before the protagonist and helped him scare away his suitors. However, his crazy companion exposed himself in front of the police, and they were arrested because of him. Min went home, worried about her father. She thought about calling her mother, but her mother had abandoned them, so it wasn't a good idea. On her way, she encountered Quinto, who had a bouquet of flowers covering his face. She thought it was her father and ran into his arms, but when she got close, she realized it was another lunatic. She kicked him in the face, sending him flying. Another failure for the prince, as his subordinates' plan didn't work. He wanted to get the protagonist's heart immediately, so they sent reinforcements to give him more power. His name was Bumblebee, a yellow car. The old man escaped from the police, followed his daughter, and realized what had happened. He ordered Quinto to get out of the car. The society was too damaged, and he wouldn't allow a pervert with money to take advantage of his daughter. He asked Quinto to take him instead. The car transformed and prepared to fight the protagonist, but it couldn't even touch him because its arms were too short. The overweight hero took advantage of opening the hood and attacked the engine, bringing it down. The old man pulled Quinto out of the car and used his sandal to slap him while he was on the ground. His emoji-like face changed constantly due to his emotions. He would never forget the punishment he received from the protagonist. Meanwhile, Min arrived home at night, feeling alone. She missed her father and remembered how he used to bring her flowers when he returned from work, the times he scolded her for being lazy, and all the good moments they had. She couldn't contain her tears, crying inconsolably, while the protagonist listened from the other side of the door. The old man regretted leaving his daughter without warning and interrupted the emotional moment he was having with his daughter. Yamada suggested that they go out partying. The next morning, Min woke up, checked her father's room, and realized he still hadn't returned. However, he had entered the house while she was asleep and prepared breakfast for her, leaving a note by her side. That was all he could do until he returned to normal. Meanwhile, on the other side of the hallway, the old man was impaled in the chest by the alien prince, who had come personally to kill him. The prince used a deadly technique called the 1,000-year love-piercing anim. Nobody could stop his conquest of Earth, but the protagonist remained unfazed. His body regenerated quickly, and the prince was sure he had pierced him with his fist, which was covered in blood. He used multiple attacks, but the overweight hero acted as if nothing was happening. The prince of the planet Tenerife, Momo, was humiliated by a mortal, which was a disgrace to his family. The protagonist blew his nose, and the prince collected it, finding it disgusting. He believed that this was the protagonist's weakness, and if he ingested it, he could decipher his molecular structure and characteristics. So, he ate it and left through the stairs. Suddenly, he appeared again, flying in the sky, ready to destroy Earth. While floating, he absorbed the mucus of all the Earthlings and created a giant sphere in the palm of his hands. The gigantic mucus ball weighed more than he expected, and he comically crushed himself with it. Momo didn't give up and tried to throw it at the protagonist's house. The protagonist used his sandal to stop it and protect his daughter, who happened happened to arrive at that moment after hearing the noise. Min angrily threw herself on top of him, telling him to disappear, but he was shirtless in front of her house, and his screams reminded her of her father, whom she missed. She gave the prince a beating in front of her father, savoring the moment. She remembered her childhood when her mother used to beat her in a similar way, feeling her mother's physical love through the daily scoldings and beatings. She was very happy. Momo was moved by seeing his daughter beating him and even fell in love with her. She was very beautiful, and he wanted to marry her. The gigantic mucus ball disappeared. He approached Min and declared his love, saying he wanted to be beaten by her every day. She completely ignored him and went inside her house. He thought of giving her a gift to win her love, and one of his subordinates suggested buying an apartment. The prince was surprised to see the prices. He couldn't afford it and couldn't ask for a loan. It seemed like he decided to sell his body to get the money. The protagonist was seriously injured after his daughter's beating. He was immortal, but her blows hurt him. Yamada healed him, and at that moment, someone knocked on the door. It was their new tenant, Momo, who moved into the apartment with them and paid Yamada rent for a year. In a scene change, the protagonist could be seen remembering or dreaming about his past life. He had won the Golden Toilet Award and worked hard. He publicly thanked everyone, especially his family. He and his team were developing a new prototype for an intelligent toilet. He had a lot of work, constantly traveling, and not spending time at home with his family. The old man was very popular with girls due to his job, but his sweet dream came to an end. He woke up in despair as Momo strangled him, used his sandal to slap him, and gave him a slap. The protagonist didn't understand why Yamada accepted him. He didn't want to continue living with him. For an extraterrestrial prince, he spoke and behaved just like a human. He had studied to win Min's heart. The overweight hero got angry when he heard that the prince was after his daughter. Yamada prepared breakfast to calm things down between them. At that moment, Min knocked on the door. The faucet in her bathtub was having problems, and the plumber hadn't arrived yet. She was washing her clothes and had nothing to wear, so she decided to ask for help in a towel. The prince and his father rushed to help her, then punched the overweight hero in the face, thinking he was some kind of perverted stalker. Yamada told her that they were distant relatives. Min didn't trust them at first, but when she realized they were flattering, she asked for their help in fixing the faucet. Both of them went to Min's house. The faucet had constant problems, and the prince took the initiative to repair it. He started sucking the water from the faucet with his mouth, and the protagonist believed he could drain the planet of its water and destroy it. However, he passed out after a few seconds. Min went to ask for help, but at that moment, he woke up, helped the protagonist fix the faucet, and felt guilty for not fixing it earlier. He confessed to the prince that he had been at their house since Min was little, and the faucet had always had issues. He would either partially fix it or simply ignore it. He regretted his past actions and felt that his daughter was unhappy. He told Momo that Min was his daughter, which was why he didn't leave her alone. Min returned, realizing they had left. Despite being perverts, they had managed to temporarily solve the problem, repairing the faucet with adhesive tape, which reminded her of her father. In a scene change, the extraterrestrial emperor was angry. Momo had sold the spaceship and moved to Earth without permission. His brother would take care of the situation. Later, a mysterious young girl visited Yamada's house. The protagonist was surprised by the unexpected visit, and more strangers kept arriving. The prince, after moving to Earth, had become a commoner. The girl who visited them was his fiancée. The guys got angry because he had said he didn't have anyone, and he seemed to be in love with Min, not even remembering her. At that moment, Min came out to thank them for fixing the faucet. Momo's fiancé tried to assassinate her, but her father stopped her. Stopping her attack, she became paralyzed. Her real body was in her tail, and her name was Dadosiana. The prince remembered how he had met her when he was in the 4th year of school, preparing to become a prince. One day, he needed to use the bathroom and accidentally entered the girl's bathroom, where he met her. She was asking for help, and when he came to her aid, he realized that her tail was talking. They belonged to a race of tentacled beings with the world's largest brain. Her actual body was her entire tail, and the rest, which resembled a human, had several functions, functioning as a mobile battery and essentially a human computer. She had been asking for help because there was no toilet paper, and the prince helped her. That day, he made a contract with that creature for the first time. She misunderstood the situation and claimed to be his fiancée, constantly harassing him, but he didn't want to be with her, as they belonged to different worlds and races. However, his father, the great emperor, disagreed. They had to get married. Dadosianos were the wealthiest in space, making her the best choice. But Momo refused and decided to find a planet to conquer and a wife. Afterward, he arrived on Earth and started living with them. He told the protagonist the whole story, understanding the context of his invasion. Meanwhile, Min didn't didn't believe anything they were saying, finding it immature. For a moment, she thought the overweight hero was her father, but she was disappointed and left. Yamada believed Datosiana was dead, still not understanding the situation, unaware that her mouth was actually another part of her body. He begins to perform CPR, and Datosiana felt pleasure. In a scene change, the prince's brother is seen traveling to planet Earth. Yamada faints after giving oxygen to Datosiana. Momo confesses that he would stay on the planet until he conquered his daughter's heart, but that didn't please him. Min would be in danger with him. However, he was willing to protect Min with his life. The overweight hero takes him at his word. They needed to work together for Min's well-being. At that moment, Datosiana's battery goes haywire. Her energy became unstable, and if they couldn't stabilize it, she would explode. This energy could easily destroy the Earth. Just then, her brother arrives and is surprised to see Momo, seemingly engaging in a compromising energy-draining activity. The Emperor had 3 sons, and his younger brother was the strongest of them all, also known as the third prince, Momoma. He believed that Datosiana had driven him crazy, so he kidnapped her and flew away. They tried to stop him, but it was too late. He exploded, and his brother apparently died. Following that, the protagonist is in for a huge surprise when he sees a person who looks just like him arrive at his apartment. The protagonist was confused. He was sure he was still Min's father, but he didn't interrupt their reunion. He became depressed and told Momo what was happening. But not all was lost. Datosiana had information about the entire universe and could help him. She was unconscious, her battery destroyed, but they could replace it with an Earth battery. Earth's electricity was sufficient for her. They used Yamada to accomplish this task by connecting it to the back of a person. Datosiana's energy levels were higher than humans, allowing her to control their bodies. Datosiana returned to life, but Yamada's physique changed drastically, even having feminine features. The protagonist woke her up because he wanted to know what had happened to his body. This task was simple for her, she just needed to analyze his DNA. The data input port was Yamada's mouth, and she used her hair. After analyzing his DNA, she informed him that he had hemorrhoids, but beyond that, she realized he wasn't an Earth inhabitant. He was a terrestrial but not from that Earth. Every parallel universe has its own Earth, and a power had led to a dimensional rupture, causing him to get lost and end up in that dimension. Both universes had the same time, places, and people, but their axes were typically different. That's why there were 2 of him in that world. Because of this, the Universal Office had to modify him physically. If he returned to his world, he could be a normal person. The only way to do it was with a rupture under the same circumstances, but the chances of being the only person defecating were nearly impossible. Yamada's consciousness seemed alive after merging with Datosiana. He felt envy for the relationship the protagonist had with the prince and simultaneously expressed a strange love he felt for her. In a change of scene, the Emperor receives the charred body of his son, wondering what the Earth's inhabitants had done to Momo to make him betray his brother. However, his other brother was smarter, investigating victims before attacking them, so he decided to take on the appearance of the protagonist to be close to his daughter. The Emperor questioned his first son Mo's plan, but the subordinates trusted him. He had even watched several television series to study women. In another scene change, Mo prepares an amazing fruit dish, leaving Min amazed. She takes a bite and experiences a wide variety of flavors, imagining an endless array of things. The Emperor observed everything happening from his spaceship, angry to see his son emotionally connected to Min. The Emperor wanted to take over the universe, eliminating any trace of emotion or feeling. When he was a child, his childhood friend was killed by a perverted extraterrestrial, and the police arrested her. He was in love with his friend, but his parents arranged a marriage for him. He married a horrible extraterrestrial from another race. They couldn't have children, but the doctor found a solution. Afterward, they had 3 great sons and were happy for a while, but it didn't last long. When the princes grew up, his wife became ill and died. Just before dying, she said many horrible things to the Emperor, even cheating on him with the neighbor. Saddened by the loss, he became incapable of feeling love and affection. He discarded his feelings and decided to conquer the universe. It caused the death of couples, believed that strong people didn't need feelings, their children failed, and he would personally go conquer what they couldn't achieve. Meanwhile, the protagonist thought about returning to his world. He had to head to the adjacent restroom. Mo continued to surprise Min with his talents. He organized the entire apartment and even bought new things, washed her clothes, and bought gifts. He knew that women were vulnerable in such situations. The boxes of the new products were in the hallway, and the protagonist realized that his colleagues thought he was moving. They found a box containing Min's personal belongings. She left angrily to retrieve it and encountered the neighbors. Mo invited them to dinner. He had something up his sleeve. While they enjoyed the delicious dinner, the protagonist pondered that he was like a guest in his own home. It had been a long time since he had eaten at the table with his daughter. He remembered when she was little and her mother spoiled her. Min and Yamada played at the table, while Mo looked for a way to harm them, thinking of using the darkness in their hearts. powers. At the same time, he was disappointed in his brother, who had been influenced by inferior beings. The protagonist thought that his daughter was privileged in that world. Her father was very different from him, but there existed another world where his daughter awaited. The protagonist headed to the restroom with Momo, wanting to return to his world as soon as possible. He couldn't stand being in that place any longer. Min overheard their conversation and misinterpreted the situation. Momo could control everything he ingested, but he couldn't help him with his excrement. He attempted to use his spell with his double, but it didn't work. At that moment, he realized that he wasn't from Earth, but they had no evidence to the contrary. Min was tired of being surrounded by strangers, so she decided to return to her room. Mo took the opportunity to switch the alcohol with the water of despair. Upon tasting it, they would lose their confidence and wish to die. Inspired by his sinister plan, he forgot that he had the cup in his hands and took a sip, poisoning himself. Everything was very confusing for Min. Yamada had a different appearance. The chubby one believed he was an extraterrestrial, and his father acted differently. He even tried to throw away his box of precious memories. Min checks her personal belongings and realizes something. The kids decide to act without evidence. They go out to discover their true identity. Yamada was stopping him, trying to commit suicide. The protagonist drinks all the water of despair, crying and trying to take his own life just like Mo. After that, they all take the test and sink into depression. On the other hand, Min finds a strange book among her things. She hears the noise everyone was making in the kitchen and goes to see what was happening. Mo regains his true appearance. The chubby one tells him that he should eat vegetables. At that moment, he has memories of his past when his father used the same technique. He begins to suspect that the chubby one is his real father. In the notebook she found, everyone was drawn, but in this story, he was a superhero fighting against villains. At that moment, the Emperor arrives dramatically, destroying a large part of the building. In a scene change, you can see the breakdown of Min's family, which affected her a lot in her childhood. Her mother left them because of her father. The lack of a maternal figure greatly affected Min's upbringing, and her attitude became violent as she grew up, fighting with everyone around her, including her father. The Emperor comes face to face with Min, the Earthling who seduced his son. He threatens to destroy the planet, and she is terrified to see an extraterrestrial, but she still punches him directly in the face, making him angry, and he throws her forcefully against the wall, leaving her injured. Momo wakes up at that moment, recovering from the effects of the drink. He becomes worried when he sees his beloved on the floor. Min has memories with her father when she was a child, suffering from allergies, and he desperately took her to the hospital. This situation reminds her of that sad memory. Momo realizes that the one behind all of this is his father. He is disappointed in his two sons. Mo asks for another chance, as by taking on the physical appearance of others, he could defeat the hero. However, Momo has figured it out, and everyone already knows he's an imposter. Their father is tired of their games and punches him directly in the face, wanting to get Momo back. His younger brother had died, and the older one was incompetent. He needed to inherit the throne and conquer the entire universe. The prince rebels against his father, not interested in any of that. He just wants to be with Min, as he fell in love with her at first sight. His father understands his feelings and accepts his request, but before that, he would hold him accountable for his words. He starts beating his son and brings down the building. Yamada protects Min, while the protagonist remains unconscious. After beating his son, he orders them to be transported to the ship and destroy the planet. It was the perfect moment for the chubby one to make his entrance. He wakes up very angry, destroying his home, making a cruel comment about his past, which hits home. The chubby one uses his slipper and tries to slap him, but his attack does absolutely nothing. The Emperor remains unfazed. The Emperor counterattacks, delivering a blow that sends him flying. Min and Yamada rush to his aid. Ociana tries to stop him, willing to risk his life, but determined to fight for his friend. The Emperor believes that the protagonist is underestimating, and the power of the Earth's protector isn't incredible. He starts to be disappointed. Mo intervenes in the fight, and his father kills him. The protagonist is shocked, still not understanding what his superpower is. All the enemies died without him doing anything. He resigns, but at that moment, his daughter encourages him. The Emperor tries to kill her, but Yamada makes an epic entrance and manages to protect her, causing him harm. He begins to fight seriously, and Momo joins in, determined not to let the Emperor touch his beloved Min. He throws objects at him with telekinesis, but the Emperor is no ordinary opponent, dodging all the attacks and kicking him in the face. Yamada counterattacks, but this time, the Emperor catches him in his arms. Min asks the chubby one to help him, or else he would end up dead. The Emperor holds him by the tail and realizes that that he is a Dadosiano. Not understanding why he was fighting against Dadosiana had information about the entire universe but couldn't understand the feelings of humans. He delves into Yamada's memories and observes his past, attempting suicide after losing his wife and child. Min and her father saved him back then. Despite being a lunatic, he cared about his neighbors and had many beautiful experiences with them. The Emperor kills Dadosiana, losing the connection with him. Yamada runs furiously to attack, but he's just a regular Earthling, and the Emperor kills him without mercy. They are all shocked. The protagonist gives up. His vengeance was against him. In exchange, he had to set his daughter and the other inhabitants free. He kneels before him, humiliating him. Min still had hope. He was the only superhero who could save them. Besides, it was written in the story in her notebook, the hero defeating the evil king. The Emperor was tired of his interventions and kills Min right in front of him. No one could interrupt them. He would give him the death he so desired, but he was wrong. Momo was still alive, consumed by the anger of Min's loss. He uses telekinesis to throw cars at his father. The protagonist was paralyzed while he looks at his daughter's notebook, remembering the time he spent with her at the hospital after her allergy attack. During those days, he put aside his work and stayed home with her, taking a notebook and creating a comic for her. It told the story of a superhero who defeated his enemies with his slipper, protecting her from shrimp allergy. In essence, warding off everything that scared her. The chubby one cries as he remembers those moments. Meanwhile, the battle between father and son continues. Momo had lost control, yet he couldn't manage to stop it. The protagonist rises with determination, ready to solve the problem he had caused. The experiences of the past affected Min. She managed to see both sides of her father, the good and the bad. She added that to her drawing story. She wanted the good dad to defeat the bad one. The incredible fight between the protagonist and the king begins. Their strength was similar, and they demolished everything around them. The old man suffered a heart attack when Min was older. His unhealthy lifestyle led to it, and he was on the brink of death. Yamada supported her while her father wasn't there and confessed the truth about her father's job. Someone at his workplace had stolen a major project he had worked on, and they did everything possible to make everyone believe it was their idea. But his colleagues made him out to be the villain and fired him. He lost his job and all his money. After that, he did his best to regain his job and shared his work problems with Yamada. Yamada advised him to clear things up with his daughter about his job. He needed to tell her the truth. He stopped caring about what others said. He just wanted to continue being a hero and an admired figure for his daughter. His pride as a father couldn't be broken. All the things that had happened were written in the notebook. It seemed like a dream created by his imagination. The exciting battle continued while the protagonist slept in the hospital bed. Min passionately read the story. Everything was happening just as it was in that moment. Min started to cry. Her father hadn't told her the ending of the story. The superhero wasn't supposed to lose. Her father still hadn't awakened from the coma, and she didn't want to lose him. All the problems they had, they could face them together, help him overcome them. Despite constantly arguing about the mistakes of his past, she loved him. She wanted to be with him as he grew older. She cried inconsolably and begged him to open his eyes. It was her turn to protect him. In a scene change, Min can be seen waking up at her home. She had deja vu. She was living peacefully with her father, who had recovered from the coma. The doctor had ordered him to rest. He looked like the chubby one from the other planet. Apparently, everything that had happened was the result of a deep dream. And that's how the first season of this anime ends. If you've reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you've been one of the few people to make it this far. So comment the word hero in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.